in our previous lesson, we were able to understand that the continent of Africa is unique because of its diversified physical features. So the physical features of Africa definitely makes it a unique continent. In our previous lesson, we learnt in details about the lofty mountains of Africa. And we learnt how the mountain system of Africa has a variety in flora, fauna, and also its natural beauty. In this lesson, we will be taking a look at other important physical features that will include the plateaus and the rift valleys of the continent. So here is a map of Africa that tells us that most of the African continent is a plateau region. So the African plateau that spans over most area of the continent comprises of a number of smaller plateaus. So the African plateau is divided into different regions, and each plateau has a characteristics of its own. Now we see the African plateau is believed to be steeper and higher in elevation in the eastern and southeastern part of the continent than the western part. So it gently slopes towards the western side of the continent, making the plateaus of the eastern region higher in elevation than the western plateaus. In the eastern region that is higher in elevation, the Ethiopian plateaus are the highest among the eastern plateaus. So we'll proceed by learning about all these important plateaus, and we'll see how they play a role in defining the physical feature of the continent. So let's move to learn about the highest plateau in the eastern part of the continent. Here we are talking about the Ethiopian Plateau. Ethiopian Plateau is an extensive and continuous high elevated land with a mountainous structure, and it lies or it covers 2/3 of the country of Ethiopia. So the Ethiopian Plateau is of a mountainous structure. It is a continuous high elevated land with an elevation of 1500 to 2000 meters. So with such an elevation, it forms an important part in the eastern region of the continent. Now the Ethiopian plateaus are agriculturally rich area. Why is it so? So the Ethiopian plateaus are agriculturally productive or rich. This is because this region has abundance of volcanic ash soil. So volcanic ash soil is believed to be one of the most agriculturally productive or rich soils. So with the presence of this soil over most of the Ethiopian region, the plateau region is highly productive and provides us with the opportunity to cultivate crops like coffee, oil seeds and grains that includes wheat and sorghum. Other than that, this region receives good amount of rainfall because it falls in the equatorial tropical region. This is the reason why the Ethiopian highlands also has a rich lushy vegetation along with the high agriculture productivity. So it falls in the equatorial tropical region, receiving enough rainfall and giving rise to such green lush vegetation. Now we've taken a look at the Ethiopian plateaus that was somewhere around the northeastern part of the continent. Now if we travel down to the southernmost part of the continent, in the South African country, we have a very important plateau. That is the South African Plateau. So the South African Plateau covers much of the area or 2/3 area of the South African country. Here the Drakensberg Mountains, if you remember from the last lesson, it is one of the most important mountain systems of the continent. So the Drakensberg Mountains forms the eastern part of the South African Plateau. So it constitutes the steep edges of the South African Plateau to its east. Therefore, it occupies the eastern portion of the South African Plateau with steep edges, while it slopes gently towards the north or the western part towards the Kalahari Desert. So, because of the influence of the Kalahari Desert, the Plateau region in the South African country is mostly arid and a dry region. So, the vegetation is limited. However, the South African Plateau has a variety in its wildlife. Another important plateau of the continent is the East African Plateau. The East African Plateau is towered on Mount Kilimanjaro. Now, if you remember from the previous lesson, Mount Kilimanjaro has a volcanic origin, or it is a volcanic mountain, and it is the highest mountain of the continent of Africa. So, the East African Plateau in the eastern part of the continent is towered on Mount Kilimanjaro. Now, the East African Plateau region also has a unique characteristic. Let's look at that. So, we see that in this region of East African Plateau, we have two major depressions running in the center of this region. Now, what do you think these depressions represent? Well, these represent the East African rifts or the East African rift valleys. So, in the East African Plateau region, we have a very important physical feature of the continent, that is the East African rift valleys. Now, what exactly do we mean by a rift valley? So, a rift valley is a low-lying region that forms when Earth's tectonic plates move away from each other, or they rift away along the fault lines, as you can see in this video, and this leads to the depression, creating a rift valley. Now, they are different from river valleys or glacial valleys because they are formed by tectonic activities and not by erosion. Now, when the divergence is continuous and extreme, it leads to the thinning of the Earth's crust. Now, because of that, sometimes the magma that lies within the Earth's interior rises up in the gap of these divergences, giving it a volcanic characteristic. So, we can see in this image that there is a gap created due to extreme divergence, and this sometimes leads to the thinning of the Earth's crust. Now, because of this thinning, the magma rises in the gap, and this gives a volcanic characteristic to the region here. So, the East African Rift Valley region also has some volcanic characteristics because of the extreme divergence of the tectonic plates in this region. So, magma rises in the gap between the tectonic plates when Earth's crust becomes thin due to extreme divergence between the plates. Earth's tectonic plates are in continuous motion. Studies show that the continent of Africa will soon break into two because of extreme divergence in the East African Rift Valley region. Now, in the East African Rift Valley region, we have a number of lakes. We can see that a number of lakes are present in the two depressions of the East African Rift Valley region. These lakes are Lake Malawi, Lake Tanganyika, Lake Kivu, Lake Edward, Lake Albert, Lake Turkana, and we also have another significant lake here, that is Lake Victoria, as we can see is not present within the Rift Valley region. We can see that it clearly falls between the two depressions and not within the depression. Now, the question that might strike your mind now is that how do we have so many lakes in this depression or in the Rift Valley region? How are they formed? So, the depressions get filled with water due to precipitation, giving rise to the Rift Valley lakes. And so, a similar thing was found in the East African Rift Valley region. So, the important Rift Valley lakes of the East African Rift Valley region are Lake Malawi, Lake Albert, Lake Kivu, and Lake Tanganyika. So, all these were formed due to the filling of water because of precipitation in these depressions, and these now are a famous tourist attraction in the region. A while ago, I told you that we have another significant lake in that region, that is Lake Victoria. But Lake Victoria is not a Rift Valley lake like the other lakes present in the Rift Valley region. Why so? This is because Lake Victoria does not fall in the East African depressions. It falls between them and it is fed mostly by small streams and seasonal rainfall. So, Lake Victoria, which is the largest lake in Africa and the second largest freshwater lake in the world, is not a Rift Valley lake. So here is an image of the largest lake of Africa, that is Lake Victoria. So before we proceed with the lesson, could you help me answer this simple question? Which of the following is not a Rift Valley lake? Is it Lake Albert, or Lake Malawi, or Lake Victoria, or is it Lake Turkana? Well, the correct answer is Lake Victoria is not a Rift Valley lake. So that was all about the Great African Plateau region and all the important small plateaus that lies within the large African plateau. Now, the continent of Africa has three major natural vegetation types, and this includes the tropical rainforest that lies mostly in the center around the equator, the savanna grasslands that lies north and south of the rainforest, and finally the desert regions that covers most of the northern portion and some parts of the southwestern part of the continent. Now we see that tropical rainforests exist in the central portion of the continent. This is mainly because it lies very close to the equator and receives enough rainfall or rainfall almost throughout the year, thus giving rise to these evergreen forests. As we move away from the equatorial region, the amount of precipitation decreases and the temperatures are even lower. That gives rise to grasslands that surrounds the tropical rainforest region. If we go further to the north and south of the equator, that is away from the equatorial belt, then we see we have a desert region that spans over most of the northern portion of the continent. We learn about each of these vegetation and see how they are influenced by different factors that prevails over the continent. So the tropical rainforest, also known as selvas, are characterized by evergreen trees. Now, why are they known as evergreen trees? This is mostly because they do not shed their leaves at only one particular time of the year, but the different trees present in this region shed their leaves at different times of the year. So the forest always remains green, and therefore the trees or the forest of the tropical rainforest region are evergreen in nature. The tropical rainforest has a huge variety of flora and fauna, and it also gives rise to a number of important fruits and medicinal plants. Now, as we move higher or away from the tropical rainforest region, the temperatures are lower, and here the forest becomes thin, giving rise to tall, coarse grasses and short trees, right? So the region to the south of the Chad Basin comprises of these tall, coarse grasses and short trees, which are mostly known as savannas or tropical grasslands. So the tropical grasslands are characterized by short trees which are less dense than the savannas, and they also have temperatures lower than that of the savannas. They do not receive as much rainfall as that of the tropical rainforest, and here we also find diversity in wildlife. Now, on moving further away from the equatorial region, in the southeast part of the continent, we have another type of vegetation quite prominent here, that is the temperate grasslands. Now, the temperate grasslands, also known as wells, are found in the southeast African region, and here the grasses are even shorter as compared to the tropical grasslands. and the region or the forest is also less dense than the savannas, where trees are almost absent. As we move further away from the equatorial region, the forest becomes less and less dense and the trees become almost absent as we reach the southeast part of the continent, where the grasses are also very short. And here the temperature is much higher as compared to the tropical grasslands and the tropical rainforests. Now, besides that, we have another significant physical feature that dominates the northern part of the continent. So here we have a vast extensive desert region, that is the Sahara Desert, that covers most portions of 11 countries and one union territory of the northern part of the continent. So here, covering almost 1/3 of Africa, the Sahara Desert spreads entirely across the northern part of the continent from the Atlantic coast to the Red Sea coast. So from the Atlantic coast on the west to the Red Sea coast on the east spans the hot desert of Africa, that is the Sahara Desert. Now, the Sahara Desert is the largest hot desert of the world, covering an area of 900,000 square kilometers. So if we take a look of the world map, we see that the Sahara Desert definitely covers a huge area of the continent, spanning over such large area and making it the largest hot desert of the world. Now, besides the Sahara Desert in the north, another important desert in the southern portion of the continent is the Namib Desert. So the Namib Desert acts as the western boundary of the Namibia country. Now, surprisingly, this Namib Desert is a hot desert. Now, you must be thinking that even though the desert lies in the coastal region, why exactly is it a hot desert? So, the moisture-laden winds or the cold winds that comes from or blows from the Atlantic Ocean region to the inner portions of the continent, they dry out as they pass over the desert, because during daytime the temperatures are very high, which leads to the burning out of the moisture-laden winds, and therefore the region is a hot desert region. So the Namib Desert is a very dry and arid region and is also one of the oldest deserts in the world. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that because of high temperatures that prevails over the daytime in this region, the moisture-laden winds almost dries out, bringing almost no rainfall to the region. However, a little of rainfall that occurs here during winter season or during the monsoon season gives rise to certain limited vegetation like thorny bushes and scrubs, and also allows the existence of certain animals. Another important desert in the south central part of the continent is the Kalahari Desert. The climatic conditions here are very harsh and extreme, giving rise to no vegetation or limited vegetation, and also allows the existence of a limited number of animals. Now, though this region has an extreme climatic condition, it is however home to one of the oldest and ancient tribes of Africa, that is San. So it is an important desert. So the Kalahari Desert is an important desert of the south central part of the continent, that is right here, and it covers portions of Namib, Botswana and South Africa, and it lies to the north of River Orange. So the Kalahari Desert lies to the north of River Orange, which forms a natural boundary between the Namib and South African country. That was all about the important deserts of the continent of Africa. So in this lesson, we were able to understand some other important physical features of Africa, including the important Rift Valley region, the deserts, the plateaus, and also the vegetation that exists over the continent of Africa. In our next lesson, we'll be taking a look at another important physical feature, that is the coastal plains and the different river basins of the continent. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. You can also register for free at deltastep.com or download the DeltaStep app to learn one-to-one with our amazing teachers or to get access to all our 5,000 plus amazing videos as per your school syllabus. Master each topic with our adaptive practice technology. Get million plus questions with step-by-step solutions and unlimited mock test. Get all your doubts resolved instantly. Learn via games and win amazing prizes like PlayStations and iPads. So at DeltaStep, learning is not just fun and easy, it is rewarding too. So register for free now.